Good morning. I'm Corley Mullins, Director of Alumni Affairs at Delta State University, and I'm really excited to welcome y'all to session 3C, Back to Basics, How to Secure Sponsorships. Before we begin, I'd like to take a minute to thank all of our sponsors. They help make CAMP possible, and we're really grateful for their support. This afternoon's Sponsor Expo is an opportunity to connect with each and every one of them, and I encourage you to stop by, learn more about their services, and thank them for supporting our profession and for supporting this conference. Okay, and now I'd like to introduce the ladies before you and hear what they have to say about building and sustaining strong sponsorship programs. Here are a few housekeeping items before we get started, though. Hold your questions until our speakers have finished their presentations. There'll be time at the end for questions, and I'll help facilitate those with them. Please note that we do have time constraints, so we may not get to all of your questions. However, you can always later on in the conference find them individually and ask them. And as a reminder, everything is recorded, so you'll be able to pull this up on the CAMP website after the conference. You turn the page. Okay. Now let me introduce our presenters. Jordan Marshall serves as the Associate Director of Business Relations at the Arizona State University Alumni Association, where she develops strategic partnerships, manages sponsorships, and generates revenue for programs and events. Although this role is her first foray into higher education, she has held multiple roles in business development, sales, and partnership management. She is a proud Lobo with a BBA from the University of New Mexico and a future ASU Sun Devil, where she will pursue her master's. Jordan is dedicated to authentic selling, taking a humanistic approach with every partnership and monetary ask. She works to advance alumni affinity with the belief that community is not preferential, but necessary. Oh, no, hold on. I'm a committee of one, and this is my first session. Also, I'm going to take this opportunity to invite any of you who want to be involved to join the Biz Dev committee on the programming committee. There they are. Okay. Chantel Schuring has served as Director of Corporate Relations and Communications for the Indiana University Alumni Association since 2023. She also serves as Director of Advertising for the IU Alumni Magazine and Alumni Insider e-newsletter. She's a proud IU alumna with an MA in journalism and an MPA in nonprofit management. This is her first role in higher education after spending 15 plus years in nonprofit leadership and public service roles in Chicago and Southern California. Chantel is part of the lifelong engagement and giving team at the IUAA and IU Foundation, where she prioritizes partnerships that support alumni engagement and generate revenue for association programming and operations. As a side note, Chantel is a huge fan of CAMP, going back to her first camping trip to Boulder in 2023, where she met her extraordinary camp counselor, Penn State's very own Liz King. Chantel's predecessor at IUAA was the legendary Joan Hall, about whom many of you still ask. Let's just say she's loving her retirement, but still ask about camp every time she sees Chantel. And lastly, Margaret Whiteside serves as Assistant Director of Engagement for Alumni Partner Development at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, where she builds strategic corporate partnerships and creates engagement opportunities that strengthen relationships between alumni, the university, and the broader community. She brings more than 15 years of experience in alumni relations, advancement, communications, marketing, and event management across higher ed and nonprofit organizations. While not a UAB graduate herself, Margaret's ties to the university are longstanding and personal. Her father spent more than 40 years at UAB, fostering a deep loyalty to the institution and its transformative impact. Welcome, everyone. Okay, so I'm gonna just hand it over to you first, Jordan.
Testing. Oh, okay. Hi everybody. Oh yeah, no problem. Okay. Well, for now, I'm gonna just start with this little guide that I have printed out. So, for somebody who's just getting started, the first steps to building a sponsorship program and identifying the right prospects is kind of what I want to talk about first. So, oh, sorry, everybody. Okay, so I think when considering sponsorships, it's very important to identify your foundation and your purpose. You can't sell yourself unless you know what you're about, right? So considering your mission and your purpose, I tend to identify prospects based on four things. The first being the amount of ROI that an event or program can offer a sponsor. Whether they have alumni in their leadership always helps. The amount of circumstantial alignment that there is. And what I mean by that is if anybody's having maybe an event coming up, or this an example is best for this. So one of our partners is Phoenix Raceway, and they have a NASCAR race on October 16th through the 18th. We happen to have a tailgate a few weeks before, so that opportunity allows them to advertise their upcoming race. So their circumstantial alignment also very beneficial. And then I also consider whether their their business model aligns with the values of our ASU charter, which is also very important. Are they being upstanding members of the community? Do they value things like curiosity, diversity, all the things that we're proud to represent as a university? So, and of course, there's always just the feel of a prospect. Like, do they feel like the right fit? I think that's a good start.
All right. Margaret with UAB. Show of hands, how many of y'all are mostly event sponsorship based? Okay. So that's how we are. We are a separate 501c3, non-dues based. And we raise money strictly for student scholarships. So we do two large events throughout the year, which is what I focus on mainly for sponsorships. We're looking into other revenue streams, but we do a scholarship run every spring and an event called Uncork Education every fall, which is like a auction gala. So those are my main focuses. And I've been in this role almost 3 years. I was with the student and young alum first, handing out the scholarships that I'm now raising money for. So that, like what Jordan said, really helps me understand our why. It's easier to sell a product that you're very behind. So I work with our students to help tell their stories, kind of tug on the heartstrings. We, in Alabama, you're typically either Auburn or Alabama, where UAB, we're kind of the little stepsister, if you will. But Birmingham is a very generous philanthropic community. So it's tapping into the local families who've been there a while. UAB is also very well known for its hospital, its medical school. You talk to anybody in Birmingham, chances are either they or someone they know has had a life-saving or something experience there. So trying to sell off that personal connection, also trying to get more creative with our levels of sponsorship. It is no longer like a one size fits all thing that I send out. It's talking to people about what they're looking for. A lot of our sponsors want to get in front of students now. So it's working with them to build, it's almost like an a la carte menu of options that we can offer. And then I tailor a proposal toward that. Um, so we have a great sponsor who's an alum, he's an orthodontist. They are very loyal donor supporters. They can't give a big gift all at once. So we work with them throughout the year, kind of monthly payments, which don't recommend, but when you need a sponsor, you will do it. But for the scholarship run, they always bring their whole office. They are loud, they are proud. So this year, I created a finish line sponsorship level for them and had a banner across our finish line, said, "Smile, you're done. You're crossing the Bates finish line, Bates Orthodontics finish line." They went nuts. They've already signed up for next year, you know, things like that. We've started adding, sorry, my timer's going off for some reason. We've added a bar sponsorship to our Uncork event since it's liquor and wine based. Actually sold the first one this past June for our business event. One of our business winners has a liquor company. So he signed on to be the bar sponsor, brought some of his liquor, made specialty school themed drinks, and I think he's going to come back to Uncork. So it's really talking to your people, listening to what they want, and then being willing to work with them on how to get the best ROI for everybody. And that once you build that connection, they see the students, they see what they're doing. It helps when it sells itself.
It would be hard to say something new. What these two ladies have offered is spot on. I think one of the most important things about a camp experience is finding out what other people do. And the way Margaret started, I will follow. We are a non-dues, non-member based alumni association. At this point, we gave up formal membership, paid membership at the end of 2023. So we're one of those schools that's been making that transition. We also just recently brought our foundation and our alumni association closer together. So that pattern is something you're going to hear a lot about for different schools. We raise funds for operating and for scholarships. We don't do a lot of event scholarship or sponsorships. I would like to do more, and recently built into a new contract that the sponsor will host 3 events for us. And they are a sponsor that is wants access to our database to sell their product. And so, it really is about balance. For me, that's the most important word. As I was thinking about what I would share with this group, it is about balance. And every school, that's going to be different. So there's nothing I can tell you that you can take home and say, oh, all I got to do is follow 1, 2, 3, and we're good to go. You have to balance what it is your alumni want. Our alumni have told us, please, for the love of God, stop selling us things. We do not want to hear from the insurance people. We're tired of hearing from Bank of America. And they would unsubscribe when we would send emails. And those, that we call it a nuclear unsubscribe, because we didn't have a preference center at the time, would kill us. If you unsubscribe because you don't like the Bank of America email that I just sent you, that means you're no longer going to be getting anything about events, about fundraising, about what's going on at the university. And so we really had to draw back from that for a while. So we don't do a lot of, we call it an all send to the entire alumni body because they don't want it. So that's part of that balance. Now, do sponsors want to hear that? Absolutely not. They do not want to hear that they can't send an all send. So that means that I'm balancing what my potential sponsors want, what my alumni want, what my marketing and communications team that is responsible for sending it out, and for my organizational leadership. What do they want? We have a new leader at our alumni association who came, he has a lot of experience at other alumni associations, and sponsorship has been a theme of his work at those other organizations. And so we've been trying to figure things out a little bit differently, and having that new voice in my leadership team has pushed back on some of that balance. So my marketing and communications team, where they would just straight up look at me and say, no, we're not doing that, and I'd be kind of stuck. He has helped lead us through that, and we're making some concessions in terms of leadership. So it really is about that balance, and you each have to find your own. You have to have hard conversations. For the first couple of years that I was at the Alumni Association, I referred to corporate sponsors as the ugly redheaded stepchild in the room. I just found it amusing, but I had to own it. Like, I wasn't trying to pretend to be something that we weren't. And we have come around a corner where we are now really focused on finding sponsor opportunities that meet a mantra that I have for the work that we do, that our work with corporate sponsors offers us low barrier opportunities for engagement, where we are offering something to alumni instead of just asking something from them. When alumni hear that the Alumni Association and the foundation have gotten closer together, do you think the alumni body is interested in that? No. All they hear in that is, oh, then everybody's going to be asking me for money. All you want is my money. I'm still paying my student loans. Why on earth are you asking me for money? So when you talk about a partnership where you can say, hey, we're going to the Natty, here's where you can buy your gear. It's already loaded into the email that you're getting about something else. It gives them a chance to get something out of it where I don't need anything back from you. I just want to engage with you. And we're using some of our work with sponsors to help entice participation. We grew our social media following by more than 20% year over year. Now, I'm going to be fair. We were real low to begin with. So it was an easy climb. But the way we did it was because of our relationships with corporate partners. We did follow and giveaway campaigns where our bookstore would give us a bunch of gear. And when we were getting ready to go to a big game, we would have a follow and giveaway campaign. As we were bringing a new sponsor on board, we developed an MOU because we weren't quite ready to be at the point of having a contractual agreement. And as part of that, we still did a give and follow campaign. A giveaway and follow campaign. Sorry, I'm not saying that properly. And that kind of growth really helped us tremendously. It helped my marketing and communications team increase their numbers, and they didn't have anybody else to give away stuff. They're not the ones with the relationships with the bookstore or Herff Jones or Farmers Insurance or Bank of America. And so how do you capitalize on that? You connect it to some kind of engagement work that you need to have done. So I feel like I'm talking too much. So Corley actually set us up with some nice questions. And Jordan, I think you have them. So should we go to the next one and follow along? Because that felt like a really good framework.
Okay. Number 2, what makes a sponsorship opportunity attractive to a potential sponsor, and how do you communicate value when making your ask? All good. So there's a lot a sponsor can do with their money. I try to differentiate by coming in initially with an understanding of their business, which is kind of the fun part of my job, I think, because sponsors can come from all sorts of industries. So unintentionally, I have been learning a lot about things that I knew nothing about initially. Semiconductors are really big in Arizona. Yeah, who knows even what that is? And Phoenix in general is actually a huge hub for this very niche industry. And so now I have attended multiple things on semiconductors and talked to people about this thing. And it's just so random. I don't know why. But anyway, so a little bit of research into their business goes a long way, I think. It's kind of like what these ladies were saying. You can't treat everybody the same. You have to show some personalized effort. And also planting the seed that we're someone that they can trust to have their best interests at heart. Trust can take months and even years to build, but only seconds to break. So having that transparency when it comes to their best interests and when it comes to pricing is extremely important. I'm going to pass it on to Margaret.
I think something I've noticed just in the past, especially a couple of years, is it used to be a company donated money just to be a good steward of their business. More and more now I'm working with, excuse me, a marketing team, and they are looking for something totally different. So it's knowing going into that, whether this is a longstanding Birmingham company who supports the university, is going to support it no matter what I say, or someone who is looking to get, so many email clicks, so many inclusion in this, that, and the other, wanting a presence at the event, wanting the tickets that they're actually going to use instead of just sponsoring and then not being a part of it. So it's very much a balance, and it's changing a lot. I think some of the companies who used to just send checks left and right now are becoming more thoughtful with it as a marketing move versus a philanthropic move. And I will say we are not asking for, I think my biggest sponsorship level is like 20,000. So I'm not asking for the big gifts, which does help. I do have to clear everything through our foundation relation board, which can suck. Just because people I would like to ask for, I'm told absolutely not. So that's a fine line to walk. And we're also growing crazy on campus, which I'm sure most of you are, with building and things. And so some of the people I used to count on for annual sponsorships, they're now a capital donor. They're off my list. I've got to make that up somehow. So it is going out and finding, whether it's an alum-owned business, working the room at our business awards event, tapping into that, going to a career fair where alums are coming back with their businesses, It's really getting creative and deciding if it's the marketing track or just a straight up philanthropy giving, if you will. I don't know if that answered that question, but
Sounded good to me. We operate a little bit differently in terms of the kinds of sponsors that our local community, our little college town, sleepy college town of Bloomington, is the heart of Indiana University for many, many people. But we actually have 8 other campuses throughout the state, and we have a massive alumni body, only half of which lives in the state. The other half lives around the country, and 50,000 of those people actually live abroad. So when we're looking for sponsorship opportunities, it is, as Jordan said, do your homework, find out what their connection is. What are they trying to do? We've been approached recently by a financial services company who was very forthright. They want lead generation. They need to find X number of leads, and we're really considering whether or not we want to be part of that. Sometimes I hide behind my Bank of America agreement where, they have really strong language that you can't have other financial services partners. Turns out they're a little bit flexible on that. But I had to ask to find that out. My contract clearly says one thing. My legal team reads it and says, absolutely not. You don't even bother having a conversation with these people. But they're a sponsor that came knocking because we had a little bit of football success, and we're trying to strike while that iron is still hot. But it didn't change our program. Our program is incredibly selective, in part because of that balance that I was referencing earlier. Our alumni don't want to be sold every little thing. Our alumni are very generous. Our alumni base contributes more to the annual budget of Indiana University than our state legislature does. That is a massive number. So I can't mess that up. Philanthropically, we have to keep that apparatus moving. So I'm not about to risk it so that I can send 42 dedicated solo emails to sell something to alumni. It's just not going to happen. So that allows me to be very selective. What a national championship has brought for us this year is just to have to say no more often. It has brought some new players to the table, and we are having good conversation, but our school is incredibly risk averse. We do nothing without asking what another university is doing. We want to know what's happening at Missouri. We want to know what's happening at Ohio. We want to know what's happening at Maryland. We want to know, where do we know people who do this work that we can ask those questions? And that is the value of this organization. We can reach out and ask those questions. So if you find yourself in that position, please do. When one of our school partners, like Stanford, decides to do a little research study and find out about the state of sponsorships in the industry, please respond to that, because it does help everyone to get a better idea of what's going on. And then I can take that back to my potential sponsors. I promise I'm bringing this home. You can take that back to your sponsors and talk to them about why you have to say no, or why it's not a good fit, because that can lead to more conversation to find the right fit. It's not always the first thing you talk about. I have found this idea of establishing a memorandum of understanding with someone I want to do business with gives me some room to explore the partnership with some signed agreement in place about how we're going to work together. That doesn't get really specific, but my leadership likes that. That way, if I decide to run an experimental ad in the e-newsletter, I can do that. They're under agreement with us. We have a way of operating that helps us define what we're looking for. Take the time to find what it is that makes sense for your particular program in your particular school before getting too far into it. I think that's something that really matters to us. What do we offer? We are getting closer to kind of giving an idea of what a dedicated email costs. The bookstore, we're a Follett school, for anybody else in the room who has Follett. We don't do a dedicated email as part of our relationship with them, our regular sponsorship. They reached out in the midst of all the football success last year and were like, we want to pay to send a dedicated email. And I said, well, we won't even start that conversation for less than $10,000. And I expected that to be the end of the conversation because I didn't want to do it. And they were like, we'll do that and more. Always go, yeah, exactly. So then we raised it. But we still haven't settled on a deal because if you work with Follett, you know that they have a lot of transition in their marketing team, in their leadership, in your regional staff. And so there hasn't been the consistency to keep that moving forward. But I had the conversation, you have to find out what it is they want. I know that my alumni really don't necessarily want to hear from them on a dedicated basis because I'm already rolling them into other things. So when we have postseason football or postseason basketball, God willing, someday, that we put them in, we roll them into the emails that are going out about that. So where can you integrate your partners naturally, authentically? That may not always be delineated very specifically in a contract. So give yourself, when you develop your contract, a little bit of flexibility in how you do those things, what you talk about. We try very hard not to put a specific number in a contract that says we will send 4 dedicated emails to 400,000 alumni. Because you heard me say earlier, we don't do large scale sends anymore. So I take those things out. You have to give yourself some flexibility in your contracting so that when you're trying to have those conversations about what the return on investment is for your sponsor, they can have a better idea of how you're pricing things. But you need flexibility there. Having a menu, an a la carte menu where they can pick 1 dedicated email and 2 social media sends and 1 event sponsorship equals this. You want to know more about what they want before you get too deeply into that. So.
Okay, question 3 is, can you share a real world example of a successful sponsorship and what can we learn from that experience? So I'd like to share a recent sponsorship that we just acquired from a restaurant named Postino. They're known for their bruschetta and their wine. They're awesome. They have a very popular location just off of campus, and they are going to be our season wine sponsor for tailgates this year. And we identified them. Well, I identified them. I don't know what I'm saying. I identified them because I noticed that we had a gap in the tailgate experience. We've been doing tailgates a long time, but we only serve hard seltzer and non-alc, of course, and beer, like light beer. But, there are a lot of women especially, that come to these tailgates and don't have like a wine option to enjoy, especially around family weekend. All those tired moms, they want some wine where we deny them. So identifying this gap led me to Postino, and it ended up being very successful. And I'm really excited to continue working with them. And what I learned from it is that even in programs that are very well established, like tailgates, like we've been doing for a long time, there are still new and exciting opportunities if you look hard enough for creative sponsorships. And I really enjoy finding that piece of the puzzle to kind of to fit into. So yeah, I think that was it. Yeah, always room for growth.
So what I'm going to talk about is not a new sponsorship, but it is evolving. One of our local credit unions is called Legacy Federal Credit Union, and we've had a partnership with them. They are very supportive of our athletic department, but they're the ones who want to get in front of alums and their families and the students. And so we have a whole legacy program now, starting with our Growing Up Green and Gold program. So you can enroll your child for $25 and they get a gift every 2 years as a milestone celebration. And then once they hit 16-ish, we facilitate a conversation with admissions, get them on campus, get them excited about hopefully coming to UAB. We've added something called Legacy Family Day, which it's open to everyone. You get a discount if you're a GUG member. That's just a day at the end of the summer at our rec, swimming pool, water slides. Blaze, our mascot, who the kids love, he's a dragon, comes and, goes down the water slides with them. So we're getting, from like can't even walk up to 15. students out there excited about UAB. We've added in an event called Blazer Claws, which is a holiday one where Blaze comes dressed as Santa, and we have Santa. We do pictures and have fun events, and they do a legacy pinning ceremony. So the name really works well for what we were looking for, but they are ones who are now looking to come to our student events, strictly student events. Like we do a massive water balloon fight the second week of school. They want to be out there showing the students that they're fun, but they can also help them, with their money. So it's keeping those good relationships, but working with them as their needs change and as ours do too. And the dollar amount slowly increases as that relationship does. But I think just the flexibility of it and working with them, because you can, if you do lose that, that's a big thing for me. So keeping that conversation open, not expecting it to be the same year in and year out.
My example to share is one that's pretty recent. It's one that started with the MOU. How many in the room know the company Home Field? They do apparel brands. Okay. They do vintage inspired and often vintage marks. And they have licenses with 200 different universities around the country, 220 maybe, always growing that number. But their very first license was with Indiana University because the co-founder and the CEO is an alum of ours. And so, and his little company is hot right now. So when we had our first taste of the college football playoff in the fall of 24, I actually got arranged for a phone call with their CEO, but I brought to the table my programs people and my events people to have that call with me. And my opening pitch was, we want to be Home Field's homeschool. And the alliteration is lovely. And Connor, the co-founder and CEO, was gracious, and he's like, "Oh, I love that. It won't happen." And that's because they have to have relationships with a lot of schools for their business to flourish. And so he's like, "But please know that in my heart of hearts, Indiana will always be our homeschool." And so we took that initial meeting as we were going into that. Honestly, y'all, in December of 2024, when we were about to play Notre Dame, we knew that it wasn't going to go well. It was going to be harsh. We were on their home field. There's a lot of interstate rivalry right there. But we threw a big party anyway. And we actually threw a party in Chicago 2 nights before that game so that we could engage with our alumni up there. And Home Field hosted that party for us. And that was us getting to know each other. And so when we have those opportunities to kind of figure things out, and you would think that as much relationship building as we were doing, that it would have all just gone smoothly. And it did until we won the Natty. And then we had a technical issue that caused a wrinkle, and we lost a lot of trust. And I have spent the last 6 months rebuilding that relationship because something got off track. And so you really have to, the next question is about relationship work and how I'm going to answer it a little bit early, in that the relationship work isn't something that you focus on after you have the sponsorship. You start that to begin the relationship. You have to really be on your game and know what all of your resources are. And so bringing other people to other colleagues of mine from my alumni association into those conversations so that we could build into the contract and build into the relationship who they were going to be working with. That has been helpful. That helped us get through the snag that we had so that we could find a way to move forward. And I think that the lessons I have learned from this most recent experience with the sponsor is finding a new sponsor is how important that pre-work is. Frankly, once the deal is signed and the marketing arrangements are agreed to, the work is underway, but the relationship work, it just continues. And I don't approach it as I'm always going to be expecting that revenue to grow, grow, grow. I don't put a stair stepper into every arrangement because I feel like that's presumptuous. I have to prove that the relationship with our alumni association is worth it before I can go to them and say, hey, this is working really well. I think we're in a position to add $5,000 to our annual sponsorship. So I feel the need to prove something before I'm willing to ask for more. And that is an ethos that has been popular among the rest of my staff because they're the ones that make it happen. I don't do event planning, but if we're going to throw a party in New York City ahead of a basketball game and a party in Indianapolis ahead of a football game and a party out in California, where we have another big alumni base, that Homefield's going to host all of those, I have to know more about what happens in those at those events and what can be offered. What are the possibilities for Homefield in those environments, that are going to make it worth it for them? And they're our partner in that. We don't tell them that. Even the contract language is written that they are mutually agreed upon. So again, just trying to be as general as possible. I feel like a broken record. I'm gonna head back. Thanks.
Okay, one more question. Once you've secured a sponsor, what strategies have helped you build long-term relationships and grow sponsorship revenue over time? I'm going to go back to that personalized touch comment that I made earlier. We, for example, were in the middle of closing a deal with Home Depot, and my contact over there, his mother died, like right in the middle of the deal. It's terrible. Feel so bad for him. And so everything was, of course, put on pause. But we also took time to send him a gift basket and a bereavement card, signed by everybody in our office that even had like a moment of a word with him. And it did go a really long way. And we're actually, they came back this year and it sounds like something's going to happen. So all that said, even though we talk a lot about money, it's really about two people making a connection. It's a humanistic approach to selling, which is, I think, extremely important. And people can tell when you're not authentic. It's like Chantel was saying, the pre-work and the pre-work is just as important as the deal itself, but so is the follow-up and everything in between. A relationship is always ongoing. It doesn't end or begin anywhere specific. So those personal touches do mean a lot.
I think something I like to focus on is the personal touch as well, following up with a handwritten note, which I know sounds silly and easy and whatever, but I've had CEOs of companies email and say, wow, you wrote a personal note. I remember that. Count me in for next year. And it does take time, but I appreciate that. I love getting mail, so I like to send mail. I also involve our student reps who we work with closely. I make sure to stay in that process, get to know them, use them when that is part of the courting process. They also come in and write thank you notes, handwritten notes, which for college students these days, they don't all write well, but they love to come in and be a part of that process. They're all scholarship winners. So that level of impact speaks very, I think, powerfully to our sponsors, that it's someone who's benefiting directly from what they've given is thanking them with a handwritten note. So don't overlook the easy, basic fundraising 101 stuff. You really can't go wrong when you do that, and it's going to be a memorable touch.
Absolutely. When I read Jordan's introduction, because we shared these things before we got up here, I really appreciated the way you talked about the humanistic approach to selling. Like that, there's an authenticity in that can be easily read and understood. Again, as a representative of such a large alumni base, you would think that I could just go out there and sell that all day long. But the reality is I cannot email all of those people. We do not have opt-ins for everyone. And direct mail is crazy expensive. So there aren't that many companies who want to do that. So I have to be really careful about how I approach that. So there's an authenticity that's required, and combining that with a personal touch. When similar to Home Depot having a loss in the family. When we were in a rough spot with home field this past year, they had a new baby in their family. And so we took the time to put together a little Hoosier the Bison. That's another fun thing to do, is suddenly get a new mascot that re-energizes the whole world. So we sent them a little baby gifty basket and some stuff for their son, who's already 2 years old. Because when you're 2 and there's a new baby in the family, so they loved that. Like, those things mean a great deal. Some of the relationship work that we've been doing with a longtime partner, who is Herf Jones, who's here today, here with us, an excellent partner. We found that they have a real interest in developing a ring culture, and we don't have a strong ring culture at Indiana University. And so we met them where they are, and I pulled together a group of students who work for the Alumni Association and run our Student Alumni Association. They're also all scholarship winners. We call them student fellows. We pulled together a focus group so that Herf could come and talk with them directly about what it's like to be a student here, and what do they think it might take to build a class ring culture. So meeting the partner when they need something, this is a long established relationship that I don't have to do very much for if I don't want to, but I want to, because they are a partner that's not necessarily easy for our alumni to understand. Once you've already been through commencement, what do you need a commencement partner for? Well, you might not get your diploma frame right away. Well, we run a little program called Mini University, where for a week every June we invite people back to campus, and they can go to a variety of classes, like 60 different classes offered by 60 different professors. We've been doing it for 55 years. We're one of the only schools in the country that still does this. I had a woman who's 86 years old come up to me and say, "Your team told me that you're the class ring lady." And I was like, "Well, not exactly, but I can connect you." And so what I did then was a very detailed connection with our Herf Jones partner and this woman who now has the resources to get herself a class ring from 60 years later. And that is a story I'm going to keep telling, because it just reinforces. Was there money behind it? No, but it was about deepening that relationship for the partner, in a way that didn't cost me any money, but certainly got me a lot of good vibes from that partner. So I think we're
Okay, are y'all ready to take some questions? I'll bring the mic around. Questions?
Hi, I'm Chloe from NYU. I do all of our alumni contracting, so that's everything from events, IT, everything, in between. I would love to know how you all navigate your internal university partners, whether that be your comms team, your procurement team, your general counsel, and how that fits into these sponsorships.
I'll start. We are blessed to have our own resources in between our combined foundation and alumni association. We have a legal team, we have a Marcom team. Our leadership is available to us. And so a lot of the relationship work that I do is with them. So that, I mentioned the ugly redheaded stepchild that nobody wanted to deal with. I ingratiate myself. I find out what it is they do, what it is they like. Do they have dogs? Where do their kids go to school? And work on those relationships. And that has taken time. I'm just a little more than 3 years in this role, and I have made good progress in that. Another place to direct, if it depends on your situation, but our university has its own Office of Corporate Sponsorships, that operates separate from our Alumni Association. Before I got there was no real relationship with that office. And some of our partners come to us through that office. And so making sure that that relationship was well taken care of has done great things for us. In that office, our licensing and trademark director works. And that licensing and trademark director for the university means that they have control over whether or not I can use the Indiana Trident on different alumni related things. That Trident is part of our alumni mark, but every time I want to use it, I still have to get Indiana University's permission, because they technically own the mark. And so having good relationships there is just as important as having them with potential and existing sponsors. So work those relationships, make sure that those people know who you are. The personal touches work there as well. invite them for coffee, get to know what they do.
Thank you. I will just say ASU is a massive school, so it's really easy to feel siloed within our distinct areas. Our alumni association is also a separate 501c3 operating independently of the university. So sometimes creating relationships with the internal stakeholders at the university can be a struggle. But bridging that gap is, not only extremely important, but I think making a concerted effort to nurture those relationships as well as your external relationships leads to the most success. Communication is key, which I know sounds stereotypical, but it's true. If there is a prospect that I'm considering going after that I know is a larger university partner, just sending, a heads up maybe to the corporate relations team at the university level, like, hey, what do you know about this partner? Who are you speaking with? Are you okay if I approach them for this opportunity? Is never a bad idea. And when you work together, you're not only getting the most value for both of you, but for the sponsor as well. That's it.
Any more questions?
Good morning. Great conversation. This is Kara from Stanford. I think I've met most of you on the panel. I'm going to go for 2 questions to combine things a little bit. So the first is, do you have a unique sponsorship offering that you could share? I'm always looking for new things so we don't do new things at Stanford. We try to use what we already have, because I know you're going to laugh at this because we don't have as many resources as we want, even though we are a very big team. And then the second thing to that, has any of you done RFPs and put them out there, and have any advice for doing the RFPs? And that would be awesome, because I think it's something that we should look at. Thank you.
I don't have any experience with RFPs myself, but if I'm understanding your first question, are you asking maybe a unique benefit that we offer our sponsors? Unique asset, that is interesting. I think as far as benefits go, we do span physical and digital benefits. I think I do have the allowance to be somewhat creative occasionally, depending on the opportunity, especially when it comes to in-kind sponsorships. I don't know if this answers your question at all, but an example that's coming to my mind right now is my first year, which was last year. I was working with an ice cream company, and as something that we were able to offer them was a spot at our tailgate for partial in-kind and partial monetary donation. And the in-kind involved creating a very specific flavor for ASU, like specifically to be only at the tailgate, which was very unique and very interesting. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but I do think it demonstrates maybe an outside the box approach to sponsorships and the value that we can create for them. You have anything to add?
Actually, I think it's really funny that Stanford asked this question, because one of my favorite things that I've ever heard about is that y'all have a partnership with Levi's. Just one time, but I love that story. And I'm constantly chasing that. And that was that they had Levi's come to an event and participate in that event to size and sell jeans specifically. Am I getting that right? Sorry to put you
So
on the
I'm
spot.
not going to get all the details right, because this was totally before Kara started. But Levi's brought an Airstream to campus for reunion homecoming, and there was a contact that was working with us who knew somebody directly in Levi's. So total personal relationship. It was a one and done deal. It was pretty large. They brought the Airstream down, which is very costly. They brought the t-shirts that were customized for each attendee of that class. It wasn't all reunion homecoming. Reunion homecoming is 8,000 to 9,000 people. So they focused, I think, on young alums or young graduates, and then they customized those iron-ons for those T-shirts in person with the attendees.
So I know that one and dones can be hard because a lot of effort goes into them, but it does give you something to talk with other sponsors about. I have talked with other sponsors about that Stanford experience because it demonstrates that you're looking for that thing that really fits your school and your alumni community. So it's worth chasing. You won't find them all the time, but it's worth continuing to have those conversations, I promise you. So as for RFPs, I think that I also haven't done one since I have been in my role. Right after I started, they had just done one for an insurance provider. So I think it's especially important when you have multiple potential sponsors who are offering something that's really similar. So it gives you a chance to go through that process. We also work with our Office of Corporate Sponsorships at the university because they are RFP all the time. So they're a great resource. And as a demonstration of how far our relationship with the university has come, the university is pursuing a partnership for an airline partner and a hotel partner. And they know that they can't make those deals without the alumni base. So this year they came to us before they started that process and asked, what do we want out of it? What would we look for in a partner? Because we had started having conversations of our own. And so that was, was really demonstrative. So I think you save it for the times when you have multiple entities that are essentially competing. So when you're when you're looking for a new insurance partner, you've got a handful of them. You want to have all of the same information to compare at the same time. Am I going to do that for an apparel partner? No. Am I going to do that? Am I going to do it for a bank partner? Absolutely, because there's so many details and I want to have other people involved. That's when I would probably open up and ask someone from IU's Office of Corporate Sponsorships to be part of that review panel with me. So we will get to an RFP partnership or an RFP process. I think in a few years, we're going to actually think about, do we want to continue with Bank of America? And I know that that's something a lot of people in the room have been thinking about. I've been learning from people who attend this conference that they've been letting their relationships go with Bank of America. And so that's a time when you would definitely want to do an RFP. But I think you don't have to do it every single time. So.
Okay, I think we've got time for like one, maybe two questions. So.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies. Chris Rooks from Ohio State University Alumni Association. And I just completed my first year in the corporate business development world. I am interested in learning a little bit more about how you all create and identify assets that you hold that are alumni association held, not borrowing them from someone else, both in the digital space and in the event space. We're not a very event heavy association, but we do have a few signature events. And then I think even more importantly, how you value those and what rates you're charging for those. Now, I'm not a believer of a la carte selling. So obviously you package them together, but then you do need kind of I would believe you do need a back of house kind of rate card so you know what to not go above or below on a certain asset. So I'd love to hear any of your thoughts on those.
And I would love to hear other people's thoughts on that too, because it's a complicated question, Chris. We work closely with our Marcom team to help us value those things so that we can answer questions about what's your click-through rate, what's your catch rate, I don't like to make those things up because I don't want to turn off a sponsor or overpromise. But when I can tell you that our e-newsletter ads have a click-through rate of between 2 and 10%, and I can tell a sponsor, yes, I can show you numbers that say we had a click-through rate of 10%, that's huge. Is it every single time? God, no. Is it really when they're new? Yes, but that's also, then you build the potential around that. So if the click-through rate drops because you put that ad in the newsletter too frequently, then you don't put that many instances into your contract. You keep it fresh. You refresh things as well. So I think as challenging as it can be, and it is in our case as well, working with the Marcom team to have a better understanding, because you're generally, as Margaret indicated, you're more and more talking to people who are interested in these sponsorships for the partnership value or the marketing value. And so you have to speak that language as well. I think also understanding from your leadership, what's the tolerance? What are the priorities? Is it about revenue generation first and foremost? For us, it is not. But for some schools, it absolutely will be. And there's not a problem with that. You just have to understand what the trade-off is going to be. And so I think I don't have a clear answer for you, Chris. I don't have a rate card that I can just pull out of my back pocket and say, this is what we do. I wish that I did. I feel like I'm still developing that all these years later, but it's so complicated that it takes time. There are resources out there. There's the Sponsorship Marketing Association. Some of you may get their emails. They did a free webinar a couple months back where they offered a resource that helped you work through that. It's that organization's too rich for our blood. We just won't pay to participate in it, but I'll take their freebies. And so I encourage you to look for opportunities like that to help you value. And yes, they're just looking to have you join them. And some people who come to this organization also go to that. And I'm sure it's great. It's just not something my school is willing to put the budget behind, but look for other resources out there. And ask, again, if you have a good relationship with your Office of Corporate Sponsorships, ask what they do. They actually gave me a template that they use for quick and dirty. They call them quick and dirty sponsorships. They're, smaller amounts of money. They have a template that they use, because part of this back and forth sometimes is, well, who starts the agreement? Is it the potential sponsor or is it us? And I find that we work both ways, and I've overheard some of my colleagues talking about the same thing. So it's not like a template is going to fit every single opportunity. So
We don't have any asset valuation. That's something we're working on, mainly because we're more event-based sponsorships. So that's where the a la carte really helps me, is that someone doesn't need 4 tickets to an event, but they want to do something else, like have a table. So that kind of trade-off. So I don't really have a great answer, except that we know what for an event is worth more to us and for them, and just having that conversation. We don't sell ads, we don't have a magazine, so I don't have that type of trade-off yet.
Following up on what Margaret said, I just want to say that there are a few things that I consider when we're talking about what to charge for an event. And it is an imperfect system, absolutely. One thing is starting with the budget, like how much do you want to make from the event or the program? And it varies for us by event and by program. Like, for instance, there's an event that if we're in the black every year, like that's a good turnout for that event. Like, we're happy with that. And there's other events, where we expect a certain profit. But starting with the budget, and then I think having data is always helpful, but it's hard to place a value on the qualitative ROI for an event. Some sponsors are fine with just paying for the exposure, piece without a clear, definitive ROI, I guess. I'm not sure if that helps. Imperfect system, like I said.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Real quick. Just looked at my last view.
Yeah, I know we're at time. I just wanted to volunteer my amazing colleague Jennifer Guy as a resource right back there in the Carolina Blue. Jennifer and Emily Smither from our biz dev team, we recently just went through a whole asset valuation process, and we're doing that based on the audience and the marketing value. So not as much based on the event is covering the event, but like, what's the reach? How are they aligning with our brand? What kind of extra experiential elements? We're elevating pricing based on that. So find Jennifer if you're interested, Chris and others, because she just did a really, really great job with that project.
Okay.
Thank you for that. That was wonderful. And that, again, that's the magic of CAMP right there. I mentioned in my bio something that has been really helpful. And I didn't take this on because I wanted to. I was assigned this and I did it kicking and screaming. But they added director of advertising to my role. And that has been really helpful because sometimes when a potential sponsor comes calling, they'll actually settle for an advertising opportunity instead of. And having that in my back pocket, I have turned that corner 3 times this year. And it increased my advertising budget. And we exceeded our goals in that area. So sometimes those ideas that your administrators have, they're actually worth it. So it turned out to be a good opportunity for us. Thank you. We sell we have a twice annual physical publication, a magazine, and we have a monthly e-newsletter. And the e-newsletter circulation is actually higher than the magazine. And it's engaged alum. We don't send it out to everybody. We send it to alumni who are engaged with us, and we maintain that list all the time. So if you've come to an event, you get put into that bucket. So the people who are getting the newsletter are opening it, they are reading it, and that has been really helpful. So I've been able to really increase the number of ads. And sometimes we get really creative, like Follett decided this year that they want to go to the Indiana State Fair. Good for them. So what did we do? We turned that into an ad. So I would normally run a Follett ad a couple of times a year. But this time I had my university communications marketing team create a Meet Us at the Fair ad. And we drove the traffic to a page that had all the information about where to find them at the fair this year. So Follett gets an ad. People are dressed in Follett in bookstore gear. And it's about IU participating at the fair. So it met their need, it met our need to drive people there, and it didn't cost anybody any money. And so it's just a fun way to turn that around. We had Kyle Cavan is somebody who's wanted to be a sponsor for a while. We really resist the idea of revenue share, but we love that company. And so we opened them up and just made them a sponsor. We actually created sponsor opportunities with social media, which we had never done before. And so that is something we're experimenting with. So rather than turn down the rev share, well, we continue to turn down the rev share, but I took the revenue in another way. I know I'm going to get the money for that property, and it's also we're refreshing both of the physical magazine, and so we are assessing right now our ad rates for that. So doing that at the same time as well. And yeah, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you three so much for your insight. Once again, if y'all still have more questions, reach out to them either after like sometime this week, or their emails are in the app. You can find their information. So round of applause for our speakers.